Hey everyone, it's Stamp Ventures with Shauna. I'm a Stampin' Up! Independent demonstrator in Canada. Welcome to my tutorial. If you're watching this at around 8 o'clock or just a few minutes after on Tuesday, April 2nd, this is live. And if it's after that, then you're catching the replay on maybe Facebook or if I've got it uploaded to YouTube. Today I'm going to be sharing a technique that I learned at the Stampin' Up! Convention in Orlando, and I can't even remember if they had a name for it, but I'm calling it Mixed Media Rainbow Technique. And yeah, I can't, they might have called it rainbow embossing or something like that. There's different variations on this, but I'll show you what I picked up from it at the convention. This one, I called it mixed media because it uses ink and it also uses embossing powder. Hi Melanie, thanks, I'm glad you like the blue card. That's what I was playing around with today. This is going to be what my club ladies make tomorrow. So I'm just using my brand new camera stand, and the thing with the camera stand, the new one, is that I can't read the comments while I'm videoing. It's just up above my head a little bit too high, and so it worked. Oh my gosh, look at that. I'm just going to be checking on my iPad if any comments come through, and so well, we'll give this a whirl and see how it goes. It's just a new thing for me. Okay, so, before we get started, weather word of the day. Well, I was going to say disgusting, but I'll just say flaky. That's any of you who live in Moose Jaw or southern Saskatchewan, you know what I mean when I say flaky. Yeah, it was just a little disgusting today. Thankfully, though, when I look outside, you can't really see evidence of those flakes anymore, but there was evidence definitely when we woke up this morning, and yeah, enough said. And I do have a funny, and lots of you have probably seen this. Yeah, I'd say so. Maybe many of you have seen this on Facebook, but it's just too cute not to share, about what we learn from cows, buffaloes, and elephants. It's impossible to reduce weight by eating green grass and salads and walking. So yes, some food for thought. Okay, so gonna move on and get started sharing this technique with you. The first time I tried the technique, I used the lovely lattice stamp set from Celebration, and that's the one that they showed this technique with at the convention. And for this one I used cherry cobbler ink, and I used copper embossing powder, and I sent these out as thank yous with some of my orders. And I had one of the ladies come back to me and say, oh, like, do we have rose gold embossing powder now? That card was just beautiful. So I described to her how I did it, and then I thought, no, I really need to teach this technique to my stampers and show the video too. And maybe some of you have already seen something like this, but it's a good one to have, and it looks kind of complicated, but it's not too difficult, and it makes a wow just in a short amount of time. So for my club ladies, I thought, what big stamp do I have that, because you want to have a large sort of detailed image to get the different colors of ink and embossing powder. And I thought, oh, a background one like sheet music would work perfectly. And I think this is also going to end up being my mother-in-law's birthday card, because she taught piano lessons for years and years and years. So this will be perfect for her. And she loves the color blue too. So I'm going to show you how I did the technique with this card, but then you'll be able to understand that it basically worked the same way with the lovely lattice as well. Hi Sue, hi Lori. Okay, so first off, I'll show you the paper that I used here is Whisper White, Bermuda Bay, and Night of Navy. And the Bermuda Bay piece is 5¼ inches by 4 inches. And the white is, let's see, I have to think about this. I was thinking of 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch less in each direction. So this is like almost 4. And I hate having, my brain has to think hard about this. It's like 3 7/8, I guess, and almost 5 1/4. So it's like 5 1/8, something like that. So that they just layer with a very thin line going around on the edge of the mat of the Bermuda. So I'll show you how the stamping works. And as I mentioned, I use the sheet music, and thank you, Sue, for lending this to me. I have a sheet music, but I have it on a wooden block, and I'm gonna have to rethink all of my background stamps now because it's just so awesome using them in the Stamparatus. That's how I did this. And I have my, what's it called? Buffalo plaid. I got that one in Clearmount, and it's just so perfect. I wouldn't want it any other way because you get such good results with Stamparatus. I was going to show you how I've got my Stamparatus set up. The sheet music is a rubber stamp, and I know Stampin' Up made the Stamparatus so that it's just supposed to be used, you know, just with your, where did I put my white paper? Just without, here, just plain flat on the base of the Stamparatus. The foamy piece is supposed to be used for when you're using Clearmount stamps because Clearmount stamps don't have a layer of foam in them. But I have found when I'm using big stamps like this, and I found this with my Buffalo plaid as well, that it just having that extra bit to raise it up helped to get the image showing up a lot better in all areas. Now, the other thing that you can use for raising up your platform a bit, and lots of people have used this, is what's called the silicone sheet. And you could just use that with a rubber one, or if you've got a photopolymer stamp, you could use the silicone and the foam mat together. Play around, see what works best with your Stamparatus and the stamp that you're using, the image that you've got, how close you're using it to the edges of the hinges. All those things make a difference, and whether you're using magnets or not too. I don't use my magnets very often. I just always either remember to butt up into the corner, or in this case what I've done is I've taken some of the Stamparatus grid paper, and I'm gonna butt the grid paper up into the corner. And then I took some snail, and you probably can't see it, but I just put like a teeny dab in about three or four spots. And then before I put my paper onto there, I took my finger and I just swiped my finger across the adhesive to make it so that it wasn't so sticky. I'm trying to make it into a temporary adhesive, just to hold the paper in place temporarily. Now, I don't want to butt up into the corner right away or right off the bat, because if you can see the background stamp, there's an edge along there, and I don't want any extra space along. I want my whole thing covered with notes and music. So what I've done is I just marked with a marker there a corner where I'm going to be putting my paper, and then I'm going to give it a rub so that it's going over top of those spots of a temporary adhesive, and I'm going to make sure that my grid sheet is butted up into the corner, and I'm always going to be starting from there. All right, so here's where the magic goes. Oh, and hey to Elaine there. Great that you could join us. Okay, I'm rolling up my sleeves. I don't know if you can see that, rolling up the sleeves, because I'm going to get a little inky doing this. First off, I'm going to start, I've got 2 colors of ink. I've got Bermuda Bay and Pacific Point. And I'm going to start with Bermuda Bay because it's slightly lighter. So I'm going to ink up the music. And did you see, I don't know if I quickly did this, I slipped this ink, this stamp case underneath, and it makes it just the right height to hold it flat and allow me to ink it up. So just gonna get this all inked. Oh, I'm probably making my stand, I can just see I should go lighter. I'm probably making, yeah, I am making the camera jiggle by doing that. Okay, I'm learning, okay. Now, that's the slightly lighter ink. I want to get a little bit of bluey color in there too. This is sort of a greenish blue. This is more of a true blue. And these 2 colors blend together really well. So what I did was I just tapped, a little bit of Pacific Point there, a little bit there. Turn it this way, tap some there, tap, tap, tap. So now I've got a mixture of Bermuda Bay and Pacific Point, and I'm not too worried if the Bermuda Bay gets a little bit onto the Pacific Point ink pad because it's darker, and Bermuda Bay has a certain amount of blue in it anyways. So, and I just kind of using the corner of the ink pad too. So that's, yeah. If you were really worried about getting a different color onto here, what you could do is take a sponge dauber, a finger dauber, and really ink it up well with this darker color, and then you could sponge on with the ink, the sponge dauber. All right, so now I think I'm ready to stamp. I know I got a lot off on the edges. I'll try not to, well, actually that's going to be off the edge of my paper anyways, but I'm going to stand up to do this part so that I get a good pressure. And you can see as I'm laying it down, it doesn't lay straight flat because I've got that extra layer of foam under there. But once I do give it a push, that really allows me to make sure that all parts of the sheet music image are contacting my cardstock. Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to hold this up a little bit closer. Can you see there's, yeah, the darker blue a little bit there. It kind of goes green, blue. Yeah, in bits here and there. I'm just going to go back to this first card that I showed you. This one, when I did this one, the only color of ink that I used was Cherry Cobbler. So this one I chose to use a blend of 2 different colors. This one I just used Cherry Cobbler. So this is the ink part of it. Now we need to move on to the embossing part of it. And so I've got my, yeah, isn't that beautiful? My chamois, and I'm going to clean off all the ink from my stamp. And I don't have to worry about this moving because remember I've got that, those little bits of snail that I've just used as sort of a temporary adhesive. And that's holding that in place. And, oh, wow, you know, I didn't want to have my chamois too wet because I didn't want to have to wait for my stamp to dry, but I really squeezed this very well. I can't believe how dry this chamois is feeling. Okay, so just make sure I get the worst of the ink off. There we go. Oh, and that's probably making the camera all jiggly again. Sorry about that. There we go. I'm calling that good for now. Now, making sure that this is still up in its spot. Going to get out the Versamark ink. I always store my Versamark ink upside down just to make sure that the ink is right there on top, ready to go. And I always, this is my habit, I always put my embossing buddy right there on top to remind me to use it. And it just seems to, when you use the embossing buddy, not only does it help with the little flecks of embossing powder, but it helps to make your image crisper. Yes, and Melanie, you're absolutely right. My chamois is well loved. And I was thinking that someday on Facebook, I'm going to post a little contest, and I'm going to have people out there post a picture of their chamois, and we'll see who has the dirtiest chamois, and we'll send them a prize. I think that would be fun. Okay, so now I'm going to put Versamark in a variety of places on my rubber stamp, and I don't know, I guess you could go look and see where, you know, where you think you might want the embossing, the embossed portions here, but I don't know, it's just kind of a fun surprise just to do a little bit here, there, and everywhere. I'm just rubbing the corner of it, so I'm not, just going to get a few splotches of embossing powder, but not, I don't want to emboss the whole thing. I want to be able to get those rainbow colors showing as well. So now that's up into the corner again, and I'm going to take and stamp it and transfer that Versamark onto, so some of the Versamark is just going to be going over top of the existing color. All right, so now some of it is shiny, and I don't know how much of that would be coming off to you, but over the camera. So I'm gonna remove this from the temporary adhesive, and I'm gonna grab, for this card I used silver embossing powder. Actually, after I'm done doing this demonstration, I'll show you some other colors that I tried, but I thought that for the butterflies that I was using, I didn't want it to be too busy in the background because the butterflies already have some busyness going on with them. So I thought the silver looked best. So I've got my silver powder here, and I wonder if I can do this without getting it all over. Just sprinkle on the bottom half, tap it off, and sprinkle the top half. And tap it off. And now, of course, right now it's all going to look dark because that's where the grains of the embossing powder are. And so you can see it's got some rainbow blues and greens, and then it looks kind of gray. And we'll just pretend that I've taken it over to the heat tool and very carefully made sure I've set all of those little pieces. You really have to hold it up to the light and see that it's shiny and not grainy anymore, because some of those are sometimes hard to see. And then voila, when you're done embossing it, you'll get some silver parts in some areas, and some Bermuda Bay in some areas, and some of the darker Pacific Point in some areas. And that's, yeah, and going back to this lovely lattice card, same thing. I would have cleaned off the lattice stamp, and then I would have applied Versamark in a few different spit spots of it. But with this one, I would have sprinkled it with the copper embossing powder and heat set it. And this one looked so awesome when I colored some of the, oh no, I guess I used our red rhinestones for this, just to set in the center of those flowers. And it's really neat because it's kind of hard to even tell sometimes where the copper embossing powder starts and where the cherry cobbler starts. It kind of all blends together. And the same thing with the blues and the silvers on this one. I was going to just tell you a quick tip. Whoops, just threw my card into the ink pad. When I put this through the Big Shot, I found that it worked best if, let's see, I'm going to get my plates here just to show you. I put, It's still got my paper from the last time I cut it, but I've got my cutting pad, I've got my die, and this is with the blades up. So blades up, and then I covered it with a scrap piece of navy, and then I covered it with another cutting pad, and then I put a shim, and I ran it through the Big Shot back and forth twice with the blades up, and it seems like with these really detailed ones, it helps just to get all those little pieces cut. And the thing about this is I don't have to line it up with the stamp. It's just as long as it's all covered with the paper, I know that those butterflies are going to cut out. And if you've never seen me use this die brush before, well, like, this is one of my best friends for getting out all those little pieces. And I started to get out a little bit of them, and I'm like, no, I got to wait and show them on the video how I do this. Like, I just go at it with the brush, and I try to hold, actually to begin with, hold the butterfly pieces in their places just so that I can work at it and go at them from this side to get those extra little pieces out, and it, you know, can take out your aggressions. And and I think that's got most of the little ones. Those other holes are supposed to be there. They're like those ejection holes or something like that. Yeah, and then to put it onto the card, I did a little surgery, and I snipped this butterfly off, and I snipped this butterfly off, and these two you could use on the inside of the card. I got that idea from Linda. And then, yeah, I would have adhered with mini dimensionals to the front. And the rhinestones, I colored the rhinestones. I can't even remember if we have a Bermuda Bay Stampin' Blends markers. I know you can use Stampin' Blends markers, but I'm really protective of my Stampin' Blends markers, and I don't want the fine tips of them or the brush tips of them to be, you know, really rubbed hard against rhinestones and splitting the fibers of the tips. So when I'm coloring rhinestones, I generally use Sharpies, and this one was really good. It blended or coordinated nicely with the Bermuda Bay ink and the Bermuda Bay paper. So, thanks, Sue, and I can't take any credit for it. Like I said, I got this technique at the convention in Orlando, and I can't believe I've waited till now to do this at club. So if any of you ladies who are watching are in my club this week, you're going to know what to do right off the hop. And the other ones of you, well, it's a fun thing to try for sure. And of course, the Stamparatus is a big thing. You really need to have that, because you know that when after you ink it up with just the classic ink the first time, you know the next time when you go to ink it up with the Versamark that you're going to hit that exact same spot. And yeah, so I don't know if you have any other questions, but this is my mixed media ink and embossing rainbow technique. Like I said, I'm sure somebody's got a proper name for it, but I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. And if you have any questions, give me a shout. And thanks so much for tuning in for the video today. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.